My name is Paul P. I'm not even going to try to pronounce my last name, Pantaziz. And this is Shane Emery. He's a sysadmin who's involved essentially with, enterprise-wide rollout of AppDynamics. We were actually a fairly early adopter of AppD as a product. There's a gentleman, I don't know if he's in the room, Tom. Back when they had like one salesperson nationwide that covered everybody. So, it was obviously a calculated risk, but it was a risk that ultimately paid off. So that's me. Don't worry about the details. This is the only picture that I have for my profile is from a brewery, not random. There's a reason why. And 18 years I've been doing this for, and I started out as a developer, but at some point in time I had an epiphany, and I switched over to operations, and that was the hugest mistake I've ever made in my life. So, yep, indeed. Bend, Oregon, man. Great place. And this is what I look like for like these kinds of pictures, and this is what I look like at work. So, one more time. That's my day-to-day activities. I'm an avid duck hunter. That's not here or there. So. Anyway, long story short, what I'm going to try to do here today is I'm going to try to break it down like this. We didn't get an APM solution because we felt like it, okay? We kind of had to. I mean, I want to be one of those guys that wants to get out there and claim that, we were extremely proactive about going out and making a purchase or, being strategic about it. We were up against the corner. We had to do something. We had to make a decision. We ended up there. And then what I'm going to say is I want to spend kind of like the first half kind of talking about sort of what our typical use case was there and why we ended up with an APM solution and kind of summarize it up. And then I'm just gonna move into the actual second part of the presentation, which is more like, hey, we saw an opportunity. We're underway doing all this instrumentation and getting a whole bunch of things wired up into AppDynamics, and you get some of these really nice dashboards, and we got this other ecosystem of tools that we're using that could potentially integrate with it, and our budget was like $60, so we figured, maybe with our $60 we could actually build an operations center, and you know what, we kind of did. So anyway, our situation, I'm going to go through the slide, typical, and in some cases not so typical. Every organization is slightly different, in terms of performance issues. The idea of slow, kind of changes depending on the individual you talk to, perception versus reality. A lot of people, anyway, I better not say it. Development's pointing to operations. I heard everything. Like, I've even heard about how devastating the vSphere suite of programs is to really good applications. And so on and so forth. And operations, of course, we're always pointing the finger back at development, right? Because this is the truth. Okay, so it's a mess though at the end of the day, right? Either way. The people that are signing the front of the check are usually ended up paying the price. And, overall speaking, as an organization, is our responsibility and actually, a must do in order to stay in business, right? What the? Oh. So let me make sure I didn't skip a slide. Okay, there. So, our stack, just for high-level reference, we got a little bit of everything. We got Java, .NET, we got C, we got all these different things, JBoss, Mule, ESP, MQ, Citrix, IIS, Tomcat, Nginx, multiple backend relational technologies and non-relational, blah, 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 Linux, Windows, multi-tiered, distributed apps, essentially extremely highly interconnected systems. Not necessarily distributed, and obviously, just like everybody else, we are on the cloud, AWS, Azure, and obviously our private cloud internally. Private cloud, please use that term loosely. We just much like your private cloud. So the self-service side is still kind of not there, but we'll get there. So what we needed was really we needed the ability to triage and pinpoint bottlenecks, right? So, kind of take some of the guessing out of the whole thing and, be able to sort of quickly put a pin on a hot area. Root cause and follow-up after the fact is extremely important. Anybody who's worked in operations for any number of years knows that. And obviously, stop pointing fingers. This is extremely destructive in most organizations, really, at the end of the day, all joking aside. And figure out a way to bring the rest of the kind of team together into this whole troubleshooting process, right? Because, previously it was all about, okay, give me some logs. Okay, here's some logs. Okay, give me some logs from 3 weeks ago. Here's some logs from 3 weeks ago. Okay, get me some logs from 2 days in the future. Well, I don't have those, dude. We're not there yet. So anyway, there you go. Nothing new here. And obviously, we needed to kind of track and troubleshoot specific transactions end to end. This really started becoming extremely important when we started being held accountable for SLAs from a financial perspective, and that's something that's growing in time for a lot of organizations out there. And as you can tell, we had extremely good alerts before. Look at this. We would actually send this to like a product support group. What the hell does that even? I don't even know what that means. I don't even. I know what that means, but you get my point, right? This is. Anyway, and all the other stuff, having the ability to sort of be able to have a health status, at least from a service perspective, across the enterprise on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and even quarterly sometimes. And we ended up here for a whole bunch of reasons. We did do a formal RFP process. Like I said, we were an early adopter of AppDynamics, so when it came to depth at the time, they didn't have sort of what a lot of the classic APM vendors had in place. However, they had something that was extremely valuable to us at that time, and that was the ability to stand it up real fast. Our initial rollout was done in a day, fine-tuned in 2 days, right? The nearest other engagement for a sizable environment was weeks at best. So that was a big deal, and we kind of obviously consulted Gartner and some other resources, and were able to get a little bit of an idea that they are an up-and-coming player. So yeah, there's some blah blah stuff over there. You already heard it like for the last 4 days, so I'm going to skip that. And then typical operations, day in and day out type stuff, right? You get everybody's seen those. I mean, if there's anybody in this place that hasn't seen a 200 email long thread going back and forth, then you're missing out. You're really not cherishing and enjoying the beautiful. I mean, my job has been reduced down to managing Outlook. So, the client, not Exchange. Okay. So, and then you usually get all those dudes. Have you ever seen like people standing right behind you doing this? Like on their cell phones, iPhones and iPads? It's always Apple products for some reason. So, asking how much longer, and then you ended up with like, we're pulling out everything, And nothing really happens. So this slide I want you to take a look at, and I'm going to take it off. It's kind of blurry on purpose because it has some stuff that you probably shouldn't be seeing. When we originally deployed AppDynamics, this is what we got. Distributed all right, eh? Yeah, needless to say, that was a wake-up call. Hey, we cleaned it up some, though. It was all good. By removing some let's say some integrations that weren't supposed to be there in the first place, and kind of doing some work on the dashboard side to make it cleaner. And then I'm going to show you some real world emails of kind of what it looked like and why I feel we made a lot of progress. This is a real thing. I tried to get some of the aliases and stuff like that out. So this is a typical interaction. I mean, I think actually. Okay, I don't want to pinpoint you. Charlie, I think that was from you, dude. Seriously, though. So anyway, long story short, blah, blah, blah. IT, we got some problems and so on and so forth. And, 3 minutes later, here's a response. Hey, dude, below is a snapshot of payroll post transaction 907, blah, blah, blah. Here's the problem, right? And by the way, here's a partial call drill down with all the details exactly. And here's a graph of that too, if you want to kind of take a look at it, because you know you like pictures. Yeah, and nothing. Well, did you ever publish a fix for that, Charlie? Probably not, eh? Yeah, probably still out there. It's all good. So yeah, not much going on, man. Everybody quiet. So, real quick, our setup at a glance. You know, we're not a huge enterprise, right? I know some guys here have thousands of endpoints. You know, we're, for some use cases alone, just for AppDynamics, you know, we got a few thousand endpoints, all in all. We got VM controllers on premise. We're at version 4.15 right now. Shane has been justifying a lot of overtime lately, just upgrading all the time. We're always on the latest and greatest almost version, right? We have one controller, about 900 agents instrumented right now, 64 gigs of RAM, 16 CPUs, 2 terabytes of storage. We are not going to be putting that on Amazon. Not happening. One EUM, 8 gigs of RAM, 4 CPUs, 100 gigs of storage, an analytics piece that we're kind of playing around with still, and obviously the database side of the house. And we're instrumenting .NET, Java, and some PHP on a new use case that we have right now. And, you know, at the end of the day, measure twice, cut once. Same is true with our AppDynamics experience, right? By measuring the performance of our application development, making adjustments that continue to do so in production, AppDynamics directly impact our customer satisfaction in a positive way. And it's true. And my original APM deck was probably like 150 slides, right? But I can't because it was supposed to be about Operations Center. So I just wanted to give you a quick sort of overview of how we ended up there. If anybody wants the actual original one and you're interested for whatever crazy reason, let me know and I'll give it to you. Otherwise, we can just talk in person, which will probably be best. So AppDynamics helped us measure performance, analyze results, and immediately act to keep performance high. As performance high as we could keep it, right? Fast and available applications keep customers happy. Everybody knows that. I got my beer back there.
Beer back?
No, I'll do coffee instead. Sorry, I mean, we're in Vegas, right? So the second part of this talk revolves around Operations Center, right? So I'm going to make a couple of disclaimers here because there's a lot of really smart people in this room, and I don't want to insult your intelligence in absolutely no way. This I Googled, absolutely. So, I mean, why reinvent the wheel, right? Reuse and all that other stuff. So, okay, let's see. So while everybody knows that, you know, integrating early in sort of the SDLC, especially if you're a software shop, you know, it's hard to believe that there's anybody out there that's not a software shop one way or another, no matter what your upper management may think you'll be doing, right? So obviously, I'm using the DevOps silos term jokingly because, you know, we currently have a DevOps silo ourselves. So it's not so jokingly, but you get my point, right? It's very critical. And then, you know, equally more important is, you know, what happens after the fact, right? So, okay, we develop something and it's out there and, you know, somebody needs to baby that thing all the way through, right? And it's usually, you know, there's nothing fancy about that, right? Operations is kind of like, you know, every time there's a reorg, you know, and they have like some corner somewhere, they're like, there, go over there. You know, you don't even get cubicles sometimes. Like Shane is sitting on a box, I think. What? Is it still a box? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, hey, probably. So anyway, long story short, it's just not there, man. And this is what we really wanted. But this is not what we could afford. So this is the disclosure that I was talking about earlier, right? So we're not naive in any way about the complexity of building an operations center. Sort of, you know, it's a very sizable investment, and many organizations, depending on the size, spend a lot of money doing this, right? However, in our space, and that obviously may not be the case for a lot of you in much larger orgs, You know, I question the need for spending all that money to build a traditional operations center and sort of having, you know, having all that beauty that comes with it, if you may. And I'm questioning that because, you know, in sort of this whole quest through APM and with AppDynamics, you know, we discovered that, you know what, a lot of the stuff that we really needed to stick in front of the various groups in the organization was already kind of in one way or another sort of in AppDynamics. We just needed to work with it, if that makes sense. So when we looked at sort of operations center from our perspective, we looked at these specific attributes primarily, right? So incident detection, major incident management, which really in itself, it's a lot more of a process rather than anything else, and triage and some runbook automation, right, to help, you know, free some of those superstars that you may have working for you from doing trivial work and wasting the time figuring out stuff. So detecting incidents. One key element of a NOC, you know what, I got to stop calling it a NOC because it's not really a NOC, it's just an operation center, right? So I'm sorry for that. Is to detect incidents as early as possible. In the world of AppDynamics, that means dashboards, auto baselining, and alerting. So that's the parallel we draw from an incident detection perspective. And today we're using AppD to notify NOC staff of any issues very quickly, but it's obviously in that yellow state before it becomes red critical and impacts end users. Nothing new there, okay? And this is kind of an example to walk you through. The application dashboard side, you see over there, top level application dashboard shows the node health and a violation has occurred. AppDynamics has flagged this issue in a warning state before it becomes critical and impacts our end users. And then the health root violation details, obviously you got additional details on the violation can be found by drilling down. An email was sent with those details and you can click view dashboard to take a closer look. And obviously navigate into the, this is the garbage collection details for this specific incident. Navigate into the memory tab for this node provides further details on the garbage collection activity happening at that time. So, you know, there's various different levels of looking at this here. And then the CPU and garbage collection correlation piece, with this, for this specific case, always with the metric browser, we can see the CPU spike to 90%. What the hell is that word? You get the point. Wow. Is it just me, or is my vision going that bad, or? It's just me, eh? Guys, I gotta go. I'm sorry. Hey. So, okay. So the second element, triage, right? When an incident occurs, the operations center also needs to be very efficient at triaging the issue to find out root cause and remediate these problems as quickly as possible. You know, AppD help provided deep visibility down to the line of code or SQL query to pinpoint where the issue is. You know, biggest thing out of this, all fluff aside, you know, we're trying to get away from this, man, there's a problem, let's get freaking everybody on board. And I mean everybody. I mean, we would have like 30 people. Everybody who may even remotely knew anything about the thing, we would call them in. Even Jerry, our admin assistant, will come in sometimes. Seriously. I'm not kidding. I'm not sure what she did, but she was there. She's probably more than most, actually. And sort of on the triage side, you know, look at an application flow map on AppDynamics, right? You can see on the bottom over there, the average response time has spiked to almost 20 seconds, which is significantly above the baseline. And then you can switch over to the transaction snapshots and navigate to the transaction snapshots page to view the slow transactions and determine why that happened. And then the specific snapshot flow map can further show you sort of where the majority of the execution time is being spent, in this case, on the JDBC prepare statements. And further, where the hell did that come out from? Specific snapshot call graph, you know, you can see basically the call graph shows the majority of the execution time. It can be attributed to executing these 200 prepare statements. And yet again, it's a problem with the database, bottom line. And even further, specific snapshot hotspots. The hotspot tab confirms that the majority of the time spent executing prepare statements. We can click on the JDBC link to drill down into specific SQL statements if you want to look at it from there. Likely not an operations person. So the third attribute that we want to focus on is runbook automation. So most NOCs maintain a runbook, which provides guidance to the team on how to handle specific types of issues. This is really where we want to focus a lot more going forward, actually, to tell you the truth, because just like everybody else, resources are a challenge. So AppDynamics has helped us begin to start automating many of the runbook operations in our stack, thereby freeing up the capacity of more senior NOC resources for other critical tasks. This is a problem for us today, and we are going to tackle this. We are actually actively working on it. So, simple example here, health rule. Create a health rule to monitor, let's say, the request count via JMX metrics. Okay. Then specify the request count JMX metric and create a new remediation action to run a specific script. And then specify the script to increase the number of threads in the pool, optionally require approval before executing the action. Let me tell you something. That will never happen. Yeah, I mean, all organizations are slightly different, but yeah, no way I'm gonna be approving every single thing there. And create a policy to take action whenever the request count surpasses the threshold, right? So that's even more sort of on the proactive side. So, again, looking at it from just a realistic lens here, right? With very minimal investments, actually, to be perfectly honest with you, no additional investments, we have the basic functionality of an operations center. Really, I mean, at the end of the day. Throw in a couple of TVs, and I mean, you're there, really, right? And I'm going to show you some generic dashboards here that we have going on, kind of stuff that we're building that are specific to our organization. Again, the font is on purpose, because I wasn't going to go through and scrabble this, so I just made it unreadable, which makes it even more better. Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, here's some examples. And this is more of what you expect to sort of see on a NOC screen, right? Very simple, something that can be consumed by really everybody, right? And can speak more to business terms. We're a payroll company, as everybody knows, right? So things like payment processing, bank reconcile, payroll posting are very critical activities to us, right? So, beautiful. Was that an old Green Day? Was that St.
Yes, it was.
St. Patrick's Day when you took those screenshots. But yeah. And then obviously we're playing around with end user experience. This is fairly kind of new area for us. We only have one thing really instrumented there right now. So these are additional dashboards that we'll probably be consuming out of that. And heat maps. In this specific use case, we're obviously based out of California and have some New York activity for the stuff that we have instrumented. So those are also areas that we're looking at definitely displaying up on the NOC dashboards. Obviously we need some more data and some more endpoints there to make them more useful. And obviously we're fully integrated between AppDynamics and our internal service desk ticket system, as well as PagerDuty. And Shane can tell you guys a little bit about how we do that in a second. But really, I mean, and this is actually, I wasn't joking on the screen. Those are some screens on the wall that we've slapped up. We use some of the staff internally, right? Everybody, we're a payroll company. We got operators. They're semi-technical. They're sitting there. Why not put them to work, right? No, I mean, they're working. They're working already. Hey, scratch that out of the video. And some future stuff that we're going to be working on here pretty soon. Hold on a second, guys. Let's take a break here. Stretch out. I want to see how I'm doing on time. Oh, yeah, we're good. Yep. Elf on the shelf again.
2 slides left.
Elf on the shelf, dude. No, just my wife texting me. It's all good. So really, before we move into the future ventures and the challenges, because we really need to talk about that a little bit, because not everything is as beautiful as it always sounds, right? I mean, am I like missing the point here, like in a big way? Does anybody? This is a time to question. I mean, we got quoted a couple of $1 million to build an operations center. We bought an APM solution. We shuffled some things around. We organized some things differently. We built some dashboards. We bought some TVs on Black Friday. Okay, seriously. Or Cyber Monday, whatever the case is. We reused some internal staff, and we have, I'm willing to say, above a pseudo NOC or operations center. You can do exactly the same thing too, and look really cool. And actually, you know, probably return a whole bunch of money back to the pool from your budget, and have somebody else never give it back to you again. So, don't do that. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Obviously, I'm also very much in the real world and realize that this use case may fit organizations of a certain size, right? Once you get above a certain scale and you know, are accountable at potentially different levels, then you know, obviously that may not work. But hey, there's a lot of people that are in this mid-level that can take advantage of this and do it. So let's talk about some of our future ventures and things that we're kind of trying to work on right now. We're obviously going to continue enhancing Operations Center. So the APM side, we pretty much have it locked down, right? When we're not spending time instrumenting what we have, it's you know, AppD is a standard for us right now. So everything that's coming down the pike, you know, whether it's on-prem, on the cloud, or whatever the case is, we'll have an AppD agent installed to it, right? We're going to really kind of start looking a lot more at the end user experience monitoring, because obviously the customer-facing groups care about that, especially, you know, in our industry specifically. You know, we got clients doing business all over the world, and in many cases the bandwidth is less than optimal, and they're accessing software that is fully hosted, you know, out of North America for the most part. So obviously that's a very, very important thing for us to, especially for the groups out there at Tier 1. Server Monitor Pro is something that we're going to look a lot more in detail. Our goal is to, what I didn't mention is that we obviously do a lot of infrastructure monitoring too, and that doesn't happen through AppDynamics today. Did anybody guess what we're using? It sucks, that's why. I figure somebody will get it. No, it doesn't really. I mean, I don't want to cap on it. SolarWinds. So there you go. It sucks. So it's got its good days and it's got its bad days. So you know, we obviously want to look a lot more at, you know, especially when it comes down to basic CDM type stuff. So, you know, CPU, disk, and memory. You know, this is already something that's in AppDynamics, and we'll definitely start taking a lot more advantage of that. And we got C and C++ code that we really want to instrument, you know, more on the legacy side and kind of start getting some visibility there as well. So we'll be working on that. I just actually saw somebody forwarding an announcement. Is that true?
Yeah.
C++ or something? You want to?
Yeah, so some of these things that are on the slide here, well, were before the announcement, before we knew that 4.2 was going to include GA of C, C++ instrumentation, and the Server Monitor Pro. They changed the name a couple of times, just like you. So it's just called Server Monitoring.
Okay.
And every time.
Why is that, Trevor? Whose fault?
Every time we also say end user experience monitoring. When we first started using the product, it was CUEM, but that really is we're looking at browser RUM. So if you see those guys out there at a podium, it's the browser RUM. We have a product also that's a mobility as well. So that's something that we're probably going to pursue in the future a little bit. That's mostly on the Apple devices.
Yep. Cool. And then challenges. Go ahead, Shane.
Yes. So
you're not just going to submit an expense report and this is it. You're going to talk, dude. I'm done. I'm out of here. See you later.
We found, like the first point there, challenges with monitoring a lot of different endpoints. We have a lot of applications that share some of the same endpoints, and seeing them all in one application universe as opposed to multiple applications. And I say applications, I'm talking about the logical applications inside AppDynamics. We have a credentials application that a lot of these programs use at the same time. And so it actually...
Keep talking, dude. Don't worry about it.
It makes it very difficult to kind of split that all up into, each application has its own application. Sometimes there are use cases where you may have logically 200 different applications up in AppDynamics, or maybe there's just several and you want to say all of your production is one application, you only have a few in your company. With this, it makes it a little difficult because we have several different applications. We want to give each one its own environment, but they use some of the same things. And when you want to see that cross-application correlation, you can lose some of that information when you're trying to track it from the starting point all the way back to the end point. But you'll still, once with 4.2, it makes things a little bit easier. But you really, AppDynamics gives you the ability to dig into a lot of this stuff. So eventually you can get there. It's just not as quick as it would if everything was in the same application. Databases, one problem there is that we use both AppDynamics internal database monitoring, which is really nice, but we also use the separate product, which is AppD4DB. And they're in the process of trying to migrate that standalone product into the main controller product. We're finding that there's still a little bit of features that are still in that standalone database that some of our DBAs really want to see a specific feature set, custom SQL queries and results. Of course, you can do some of the same stuff like this if you ran a machine agent with an extension specifically for to run custom queries and pipe that result into the AppDynamics main controller and see that in the metric browser. But it would be nice to see all this into the same GUI. I'm not trying to criticize AppDynamics too much, but we've used so many different little odds and ends of it that we're kind of preaching that, please fix this. But overall, the database monitoring, it gives us a lot of information, and we've had a lot of people that want to see things where they give new explanation, query execution plans, and see how that is working. And AppDynamics does give that as long as you've got the permissions all set up in your databases. Of course, customization. What I mean by this is that AppDynamics is really good out of the box, but you still have to customize AppDynamics to tailor your unique organization or your unique application. So you might end up with customizing the baseline a little bit, or you might end up adding new entry points that maybe AppDynamics missed. Overall, I mean, it detected a lot of stuff, and you saw in the earlier slides that when we first instrumented, it showed us a lot of stuff we didn't know was going on. And we had to do some logical organization to try to make sense of it all. And that was part of a little bit of process of tailoring it uniquely to our organization, our company. So there is that little bit of process that you need to understand.
The one thing that I also wanted to say is, and we didn't put a lot of that information in here, is we're also in NetApp shop, so we're experimenting with a NetApp plugin right now and trying to see if we can get any creative information out of that, because obviously there's still a missing link there, right? And the missing link is the underlying infrastructure. So you'll drill to a certain level, and then what past that, right? So we're a little bit excited about maybe doing some of that, and then obviously kind of looking at the what is the new product that you guys have out, Trevor? The network side? Okay, we can't talk about that yet. Still in alpha? Okay. We can't talk about that yet. Hey, sir, erase that out of the video. Everybody look at the black. That's it. It's done.
And we've already mentioned we have SolarWinds in our environment. We mentioned earlier, we're doing a lot of this stuff with AppDynamics already. And not just SolarWinds, but we have a lot of other monitoring tools
Yeah.
that separate departments or separate teams use, and there's overlapping. So we want to try to eliminate some of this overlapping, so we're not putting too much overhead on our servers. And we're doing a lot of stuff with AppDynamics that's really valuable. So to eliminate some of that overlap, some of that overhead, and just use AppDynamics will give us a lot of information and more valuable information.
Yep, at least at the front-facing end. So, you know, that design is still kind of in process. You know, there's unfortunately, there's always politics involved when it comes down to tooling and everything else, right? And it's as much of a battle to convince the business as it is sometimes to convince your peers. So, we'll keep grinding. And yeah, thank you. All right, have a good one, guys. See you later. Refreshments outside. No, I'm just kidding. We gotta get a question or two. Come on, just for the video, sir.
So from the operations side, you talk about the knock and you know, I work for a large Fortune 500, so our knock is offshore. Rates incredible. They're not necessarily the most skilled. Not the highest paid. You know, so how? I don't know if you counter that. But, you know, I'm afraid to put this in front of them because what are they going to do and where is the value add that I'm going to be able to get? That's I've got on my engineering. It's not how it's extremely valuable for us, but we want to put it into the operations hands to let them see things before they become problems and take care of them before we get full-blown incidents and red teams and everything else.
So today the model is there's some offshore operations center, right, that actually escalates to some back end with your teams onshore here. Yeah, see, we're just kind of on the reverse side of that, right? Because we have a lot of the customers that we do business with are Fortune 500 customers, right? I don't know. At the end of the day, I guess if I was to think of one way to sort of summarize that up is, I want my operations people to be dialed in with the heartbeat of the operations, but I don't want them wasting time on things that they shouldn't be. Does that make sense? So, I mean that's really it from my perspective. It's very hard for me to build a case for something much larger right now, if that makes sense. As naive as that sounds, right? Yeah. I can think about that a little bit more, though. I'm sure, but not sober. So, no, I mean, yeah, it's a very different use case, and I get your point very well. You know, I mean, there's value in being able to route a flight check there too, and say you handle all that up to there. You know what I mean? Yes. So I'm sorry for the incomplete answer. Who was next? I'm sorry, sir. Yes, correct. Absolutely. Significantly. I'm going to say, and this is not made up statistics right now, over 50% on the first month alone, right? So at least our ability to be able to just before, the challenge was, you're absolutely right, the APM solution called customer would always let us know that we had an issue, right? Or, you know, occasionally, if it was a more basic thing, we may just kind of know at the same time, right around the same time. We could occasionally beat the customer in terms of knowing that something happened before they picked up the phone. I would say at least 50%, man, easy, out the gate. And it's only getting better and better in time. So we haven't done any, because of the overall accepted success right now for the product across the board, and we haven't really done any follow-up, but I probably will at some point in time this year, just to get some concrete metrics. I can probably get a lot of that information out of our service desk ticket, just on ticket resolution alone, right? So, but I also must say one thing. hand in hand with AppDynamics, there was also another enterprise-wide change that was done at our level, at least, and that was a more formalized process around major incident management and everything else, right? So I can't, while I'm giving AppDynamics a ton of credit in terms of helping us get out on the proactive side, I must also say that getting some formal processes in place around how we deal with major incidents and how we route those requests and who gets what, that also is indirectly, it has indirectly impacted that success, right? Because, you can get a whole bunch of visibility, but if you don't have a way to sort of who's going to get it, what are they going to do with it, right? Who's going to own it end to end, then you're losing some time there too. So yeah, I'd say 50%, as if I throw a number out there, just round and nice. And what my bonus should be this year will be good.
We had a
If you're
hand
listening,
here,
boss.
Question somebody that raised earlier?
Yep.
Is it a third question or no?
Anybody?
Anybody else?
We're coming next year. Sorry.
You talked about how you're moving to less of a blame and working together to solve problems, and obviously avoiding 200-person email chains. And do you find AppDynamics was the tipping point for that, or was AppDynamics more an enabler and tool that you added on to some other process or thing that you did to sort of get everybody to work together, resolve, and kind of go off what you just talked about?
Half and half. You're spot on, half and half. It wasn't solely responsible for everything, right? Because, occasionally what ends up happening, the tool has to allow you to do certain things, right? But then the organization has to reach a maturity level to understand that you have a problem that needs to be solved. There ain't no single tool that's magic in any way, right? And as a matter of fact, tools are just that. Tools. They break one day or they no longer do the job, you get something else, right? Right now for us, it's the right tool. But it wasn't solely that. You're absolutely right. Half and half, for sure.
Like a specific tip or any kind of thing that you think of that also help with that sort of the organization coming together?
Honestly, all that stuff gets driven from the top, really at the end of the day, right? If you can't get top-level management to be on board with that, we were sort of lucky. There were some kind of enterprise-wide changes, including the addition of a CTO that was very pro this type of attitude, right? Pro collaboration, pro cutting the middleman, right? Process within reason, which, by the way, I just wanted to also kind of reiterate that as well. On that side of the house is, the process has to be fitting of the organization, right? The gentleman from the Fortune 500 shop, the governance and process that you need there is significantly different than the governance and process that we need, right? That minimum viable bureaucracy while not tipping over the edge of chaos kind of thing, if you may, right? So yeah, absolutely. I'd have to say at this point in time, I give most of the credit in the overall mentality from up top in enabling us to do a lot of that. Because, when you're driving stuff from the bottom, man, it's like pushing a weight uphill, right? Eventually you get tired enough and you roll back down. So, excuse me, sir, who are you?
I got a badge, okay? I think the key is that to let your actual development teams get access to AppDynamics, because if you don't, if you limit it to like jobs, you're still lacking application collaboration aspect. This allows you to take a look at it at the detail level from the people who actually put it together, and that collaboration actually helps address the issue.
And that's key. I mean, not only do our operators and our operations team, but developers. And we can kind of control a little bit of what they see or what they want to see. Give them the ability to also alert themselves if their application doesn't seem to be behaving the way they intended it to after a certain release.
And the one thing that I got to give credit on that one to AppDynamics is they really held our hand all the way through. That's kind of a big deal, right? Because we're not a huge customer, right? So, typically the kind of service that we're getting used to is, You get a steak when you close the first deal, maybe like a $200 bottle of wine, and then you never see anybody again. All of a sudden, somebody pops in at renewal time, and we're at Long John Silver. You know what I mean? And it's all good. Order whatever you like, you know. But the one thing that I got to give these guys mad props, and I mean, I actually have an AppDynamics resource part-time on site for the next couple of months, helping us out. Is they've really been there, and you know, I can get a hold of these guys at any point in time, even for like random stuff. Like for example, Trevor, he came and changed my tire the other day. Like he didn't really have to do any of that. You know what I mean? I wasn't expecting that, but you did. Thank you, Trevor. I'm sorry that you're a Red Wings fan. So yeah, no, that is a big plus. That's been working out really good. And again, I was just a little surprised by that, in all honesty, because of the fact that we're not at that kind of magnitude of an account to get that kind of service. But they really have been since day one. Never felt that I couldn't reach somebody on the other side of the phone to sort of help me out. I mean, you know, I'll call Trevor for random stuff like I just indicated. So, especially when the Red Wings lose to the Kings. They won last time anyway. So yeah, sir, I think we had a question that we didn't get to right here. Yes, sir.
So, you had a choice between SaaS and on-prem.
Yes.
So, why did you pick on-prem?
Timing only. At that time, like I said, we were kind of an early adopter, and at that time it was we did not have CISO approval to put anything on a public multi-tenant cloud of any kind. So it was like you're either going to run it on-prem or it's not an option.
So the second phase of that question is, as for your controllers and point, what are your APR DR scenarios?
Shane?
What is our DR scenario?
He had to go there. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Go ahead.
So we have the 4 servers that were split up. We don't have multi-tenant configuration set up or DR situations specifically for the AppDynamics controllers, but we do have backups in rotation in case there's any problems with the controllers, so we can revert that configuration. And we have...
So essentially what you're saying is we're replicating that data to a cold DR site. And in the event of a disaster, we're hoping that in the specific case that it would. It goes with the cold DR scenario, if you get my point, which I don't think I need to articulate in this room. There's a lot of people that get it, right? So.
And on that slide, I believe it may or may not have mentioned those servers are virtual on VMware. So there's snapshots and things of that nature at play.
Yep. Yeah, there's a fair amount of redundancy, I think, overall. The fact that we're virtualized, obviously, right, on a lot of those things, it gives us a lot of flexibility. It's not as bad as, try to make it sound, but you're right, we definitely could be doing a lot better of a job there. To be perfectly honest with you, since the landscape has changed significantly on our view of the public cloud now, we may seriously looking at making that move. Though, again, it will all depend what the pricing model is there. Does that make sense? I don't know how, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't even know how they charge for a SaaS model, how that changes. So, especially since, the specs, they become more daunting and daunting as you look at them. It's a heck of a lot cheaper to host it in-house if you look at it just from an AWS instance perspective, right? But I'm not, I couldn't even articulate anything there. Any other question? Yes, ma'am. Roger that. Yeah, so we did some customization, especially around, the source of the alert, right? The naming, where is it coming from, the type of system, whether it's a database server, whether it's a middle tier, or whatever the case is. We have our triage model goes a little something like this, right? So we have a tier 1 app group that everything comes in through. Does that make sense? It doesn't matter. Now again, I'm not going to be totally naive about this. You have to remember this. AppD is not our only monitoring tool. So our infrastructure services teams, like let's say our networking team, right? They got their own stuff set up. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're not. So our phase one was supposed to be a little something like this, and we're running with it now. We're 6 months in on that model. Everything comes in to an app group, to a tier 1 group, essentially. Let's call them by tiers. They basically, those are sysadmins. You know what I mean? Mid-level and some senior in some cases, right? They look at those. They immediately know this goes here, this goes there, right? Behind them is a tier 2 platform team, and behind them is a tier 3 infrastructure team, right? So depending on where that alert falls, if we know that this looks like it's likely a network-related event, right? We would just bypass and send it directly there, right? Maybe cross-check with a platform team real quick to make sure. But yeah, that's how we do it. That's our model today. And again, it's manageable because we are not at those scales, right? A few thousand servers is not that much. I mean, at the end of the day. One bucket, yes, ma'am. Email during business hours and a page. So depending on the criticality of alert, right? So if it's, so let's say on the proactive side, anything that's labeled warning, we'll go through the regular queue, and we got people that are actively monitoring these queues, right? That's essentially part of the rotating duty. If anything comes in as critical, it will, after business hours, it will page directly the primary on call, but even during business hours, it will also page the person, a person that's designated to be on duty to cover that high level, critical type events. Pager duty. Yep. Yeah, I mean, the guys are getting all kinds of mixed feelings. By the time we got it tuned, you can imagine how many people were waking up in the middle of the night, all night long. So, yep, it took a little while to get there. So, is that adequate? Next. Yes, ma'am. No, we're getting there. Absolutely not. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. As much as possible. I hate to, because what ends up happening is, most shops are, they're living, breathing things. Things change, right? So while we're working on getting momentum to catching up, things are changing in front of us, right? And we're still getting better at trying to sort of, make sure that our future ideal state, is actually implemented on those greenfield that we have stuff that's going on, while we're working on catching up everything that's still a delta off from that, right? So yeah, ideally we will get there. The question is, will we ever get there? I hope so. I hope so. Any other questions, guys? Sir?
So I had a question, kind of two-part. One, how difficult was it to kind of make that changeover to drilling down and getting to those lines of code or code response of where you can actually see what's happening and kind of in the mindset of maybe a developer issue, code-based item, and how was the adaptability of the developers to receive that data, that they accept that this is probably truly the case and take action?
It wasn't easy, I can say that. Our approach was, let's start with the people that are more willing to leverage those type of tool sets. Because the idea is you want to get a quick win up front, right? So you got to find, in every organization, there's people that are culturally more suitable to do these kinds of things, right? So like, for example, two of the key engineers that are here, I don't know if Ron is still here. Ron and Charlie were actually two of the folks that were very, very happily to sort of dig into that, right? But trust me, man, it took some time. And we definitely took advantage of a lot of the training that we have from AppDynamics. We did a lot of sessions on-prem, and we continue to do those to kind of continue driving that through. In many ways, it ain't more different than the same challenges that you get in a DevOps adaptation model. No, negative. This is a fairly recent thing for us too. You know, we were DevOps in the sense that, you know, we were a much smaller company and everybody was working with each other. And you know, when you grow, the natural thing to happen is teams get more silent and pushed out, and then you're like, oh my God, let's bring it all back in kind of thing, right? But not in the formal, you know, DevOps has grown into a discipline that's got a lot of momentum and like a formal methodology behind it anymore, so not in that way. But we're getting there now, which is kind of cool to see. Anybody else, guys? All righty. Hey, thank you.